In this video, I'll be going over some penny stocks that I'll be looking at and probably buying at some point in the month of December. But before I get into the video, if you haven't checked out my channel before, I talk about investing, I talk about the stock market, really anything that has to do with money. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, definitely head over to my channel, Investing Potentials, and consider subscribing. But other than that, getting right into the video, there'll be 4 penny stocks that I'll be talking about, and I might talk about a couple other just smaller ones at the end of the video. But before I get into it, just so you know, penny stock, really just penny stocks in general, and any sort of day trading that or swing trading that you'd probably do with penny stocks are relatively risky, especially if they're penny stocks compared to just normal stocks. One being that they're relatively low in price, and there's probably something off about the company if they're that low in price. But in this video, I try to find some stocks that are penny stocks, but at the same time are pretty decent overall, even though that is generally hard to do. But anyways, getting into it, the first stock I'll be talking about is Groupon, ticker symbol GRPN. And Groupon pulled up right here, right around a little over $5 now. So I would still consider this a penny stock. Some people might not, but I definitely would, because I really consider anything under $5-6 a penny stock. But if we look at Groupon really quickly, how it's done over the past couple of months and a year or so, it actually is down slightly over the 3 month, down on 1 month. Honestly, offers up a pretty decent buy-in point for them. They're up pretty significantly on the year, 45%, and 5-year they are barely up because they have been dipping over the past couple of years or so, but they are on a bit of an upward trend now. And just a couple things about Groupon is that they currently do not have a PE ratio, but they are getting closer and closer to profitability. And one thing that I like about Groupon is that they really do have a monopoly in their specific industry. There's really not a whole lot of other apps or websites or really just companies in general that do what they do. And I think that Groupon is honestly pretty undervalued, and that it definitely could be traded at a much higher price than what it's at right now. So the first stock on the list is Groupon. Moving on to the next stock I'll be talking about, if we scroll down here, is I actually don't have it up right there, but the next stock I'll be talking about is United Microelectronics, ticker symbol UMC, and I'm going to pull them up right here. United Microelectronics, you probably haven't heard of this company before unless you're into the stock market, but United Microelectronics engages in semiconductor foundry business, and it offers really just a lot of stuff to do with semiconductors. So I mean, if you're into that industry at all, you might have heard of them and probably have heard of them. But if you're just relatively new stock investor, or someone whose stock isn't super invested in the stock market, you might not have heard of this company. But anyways, if you look over just its basic stats right here, without looking at the price, you would honestly think that this is like a pretty solid company, and would be surprised if you saw that it was actually a penny stock, only trading at like $2-3 right now. And if you look over how it's done, it's actually down a bit on the 3 month, but on the year still in the green, and on the 5-year still in the green as well, and pretty decent this year, 40%, and even 5-year at right around 40-50% is even better than some blue chip stocks out there. And I talk about this penny stock often because if you look at some of its just basic statistics on the Robinhood app here, it has a pretty decent PE ratio of 17. It has it's relatively large, not relatively large, but I guess relatively large for a penny stock company, at a 5.8 billion market cap. And another thing that's actually pretty surprising and not a typical characteristic of penny stocks is that it has a 3.31 dividend yield, which is actually like a really good dividend yield for honestly any stock out there, especially with a stock with this kind of statistics. Like, there are some stocks out there with obviously higher ones, but whether or not those are sustainable could come into question. But this is actually a pretty solid dividend yield, and they have been giving it out for a decent amount of time. So United Microelectronics, UMC, is definitely a pretty solid penny stock for any beginner investors that don't have a whole lot of money and might want to just buy a penny stock for the long term or something like that. This was actually one of the stocks that I traded when I didn't have a whole lot of money in my portfolio. So you could definitely look into this stock, and I think that it will perform well over the next couple of months or so, and it's actually at a pretty decent buy-in point, as I said before. But moving on to the next stock, if we scroll up again, which I actually have in my portfolio right now, is this one right here, Chesapeake Energy, and ticker symbol CHK. And if we look over what this company actually is, you may not have heard of this company, but they engage in natural gas and oil exploration, and it's just a production company. So you're pretty basic gas and oil company from Oklahoma City, and if you're from that region at all, you've probably heard of them before. But if you haven't, they're basically just an oil and gas, energy company. And if you look over their statistics here, they have a 3.66 billion market cap. They currently don't have a PE ratio, and they don't actually have a dividend yield right now. And if we look how they've performed over the past couple of years, they are down quite significantly on the 1 year, and they are down a lot on the 5 year as well. But I do actually think Chesapeake might have a decent 2018. Not just a decent month of January, but I also think they might have a decent 2018 for a handful of reasons. One, if you just do some basic technical analysis on their charts here, it's kind of hard to look at the Robinhood app, but I think they're actually at a pretty decent buy-in point right now. I think they're pretty much bottoming out, and I think definitely during the second half of 2018 they might have some pretty decent gaining, but this is definitely one of the more, speculative picks, even though a lot of penny stocks are pretty speculative. I will admit that this is probably one of the more speculative picks on this list right here. They currently do not have a PE ratio, but they actually don't make terrible money if you're actually to look more in depth on some of their statistics and stuff like that, which I did. They actually have some pretty decent numbers all around the board, except in a couple places they're suffering. And whether or not you think oil and gas is going to be big in the next couple of years or so, or if you think just electric energy or other things are going to take over, that's obviously your own opinion. But even though I think that may be a factor, I think Chesapeake is at a really pretty decent buy-in point. And another thing to note is that they also have a forward PE of 5, which I think isn't crazy significant, but I think that they might become profitable over the next couple of quarters or so. And if you look at their profit margin and operating margin, they aren't terrible either. The really only thing that I noticed or that stuck out was their quarterly revenue growth over the past year is actually in decline slightly, but I think they can bring that up as well. But anyways, moving on to the next stock I'll be talking about. The next stock, or penny stock, and the last stock I'll be talking about is at the bottom down here, which is Glue Mobile, ticker symbol GLUU. And Glue Mobile I've talked about in the past. They're basically just a gaming company. They're a mobile game company, and you've probably heard of some of their games that they've come out with before. If you play games or download games at all on your phone. But if we look at how Glue Mobile's performed over the past couple of years or so, actually up quite significantly on the 1 year. 85%. That's by far the largest on this list. And 5 year, they are up as well on a bit of an upswing right here. They have traded before around the $5-6 range, and they are nearing that range again, even though they're only at about $3.60 right now.